So we got some spring-like weather here right now, and it's just fantastic. And nothing makes me think more about a wood stove than warm weather. Well, in all seriousness, we do have a little bit of time left here in the season. Usually we don't close our stove up till around the second or third week in May. And today I want to chat about 5 little simple things you can do if you burn full-time, just to make your life a little bit easier and get a little bit more out of your wood stove. So a lot of times when people get a new wood stove, the first thing they do is they race out and they buy the basic fireplace toolkit, with your poker, your tongs, your ash shovel. And one thing that's often overlooked is a good pair of gloves. I really like a nice thick heavy-duty leather pair of stick welding gloves. They're relatively cheap, 10-12 bucks at most places. And they do several things for you. One is they help protect your hands against any sort of splinters. They also help protect your hands from getting burned at all. And they come up your arm quite a ways, so they provide a nice big area to protect you against. I've only been burned by our stove once. I went to go load it. I didn't open the door fully. And as I was throwing logs in there, I bumped my forearm up against the door and got a nice nasty burn. And if I was wearing those gloves at that time, would have just saved me a little bit of that pain. So humidity is one of those other things that's talked about a little bit. Obviously wood heat is a pretty dry heat, and you want to keep some decent moisture in your house. You get too much in there, you start getting moisture on your windows, potential risk of any sort of mold developing, or getting ice on your windows. And not enough, it gets pretty dry in your house. You get dry skin, static electricity, you could potentially short out some electronics. And the swing on either end is not really ideal for health conditions as well. There's a couple different options out there to help you regulate that. Obviously they sell thermostats that tell you what your inside humidity level is. Another little quick tip, if you don't have something that you do that, you can fill up a glass of ice water, set it on your counter, preferably not somewhere where there's a lot of moisture like a bathroom or a kitchen, but away from that. And if you start getting condensation on that glass, you have a pretty decent level in there. But if there isn't anything developing there, it's probably a little dry in your house and you want to start putting humidity in there. There's a couple options for doing that. The old classic method is using the old tea kettle style, putting that on top of your stove. The downside to those is it doesn't really put it throughout the entire house. Another option is you can do a humidifier. This is what we do. We put it in our main living area. But you do run into the limitation of, it's sort of limited where it dispenses it, but it does dispense a lot more humidity in the air, but you are reliant on power. And then the final thing is a lot of the newer houses are very airtight nowadays. They have air exchangers in there to circulate air, and some of those have the function built in there where they have a humidifier and a dehumidifier in there to help you regulate that. That's probably the best hands-off type of solution out there to help maintain your humidity. Another real simple thing you can do is just open up your blinds or your shades on the southern side of your house on nice sunny days in the winter. It can really let a lot of the radiant heat from the sun come in and help reduce the amount of wood that you need to maintain the temperatures in your house. Timing is another big thing. Trying to figure out when to get that stove lit, especially in the fall and the springtime when you're just burning a lot less wood, a lot more bigger gaps between the fires. Figuring out how to time things right. For example, let's say we light a stove at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. It's just getting a little chilly in the house. By the time it's time to go to bed, the house is pretty cooking and we don't want to feed that stove anymore, and the house has got all night to cool down. We can just throw on a sweatshirt or something and push the light in the stove back just a few hours, maybe to dinner time or to about 8 o'clock or something. Then that heat is able to carry us through the night and the house is still nice and toasty in the morning. Burning dry firewood, I'm sure you always hear that, and I'm a big advocate of it. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is there's nothing more frustrating than trying to get a fire going and you're just constantly battling with wet wood, trying to get it up and going. You gotta sit around, maintain it, and babysit it. And by having some nice dry wood, it's very quick and easy to go. The other plus side as well is you're not wasting any excess wood or heat to burn off that moisture, so you're getting more out of your wood and you're much more easily able to stay in the ideal burning temperatures, which then creates less creosote, which then creates less time having to maintain your chimney. If this is your first season burning firewood, one thing I would really recommend is going out and brushing your chimney once a month, just that first season, so you can start figuring out some of your burning habits and make adjustments. You might find that you only need to brush your chimney once a winter, or if you're burning a lot wetter wood or not burning in the most ideal conditions, maybe you have to go out and run a brush up and down a little bit more often. So one simple thing is just some basic stove maintenance. The two big things that you a lot of times have to maintain on a wood stove is your fire brick and your door gasket. The fire brick a lot of times can crack in the fall time. You got all that moisture all summer long, you get your first fire going, and you just run the risk of some of those bricks cracking, so keep an eye on those. What those do is they help reflect the heat back on, so you get a better, cleaner burning fire. Also help protect your stove, deflects that heat back towards the actual fire itself. The door gasket, these are relatively inexpensive and pretty easy to replace. Some symptoms of that going bad is you just start burning through a whole lot more wood. You know, obviously you're not able to control the air quite as much. And one simple way to check to see whether your door gasket needs to be replaced is pull out a dollar bill and shut your door on it and see if you can pull it out. And do that all the way around the edges of your door. And if you're able to slide the dollar bill out, it's time to replace that gasket. So wood ash is another thing. I like to keep my wood stove clean, and I often find myself battling with this on how much to actually keep in there. They usually recommend around 2 inches or more. Of course, you don't want that to get up too high. A lot of times we find actually if we end up having too much ash in there, we don't get quite as much heat. But if you don't have enough in there, one, you put your stove at a little bit more risk of getting damaged from the heat because it acts as a natural insulation to protect your stove. And it also helps keep hot coals in there a whole lot longer, especially for your all-night burns. It's pretty easy. Just get up in the morning, rake your coals forward, clean out a little bit of the excess ash that's in there, throw some nice dry logs on, and everything's on its way going. So the last little tip I wanted to offer up is related around the actual direction you put your logs in the fire. A lot of times stoves have an air intake in a certain place, and depending on where that is, depends on the direction you face your logs. In the colder months, a lot of times you want to do like what they call a north-south facing fire. So for example, our stove, we have the air intake in the front of the stove, and by pacing our logs going from front to back, the air is able to penetrate through there much better, and you get hotter burning fires. In the spring and the fall time, where we want a fire to warm us up but we don't want to cook ourselves out, actually by turning our logs what they call east-west, doesn't allow the air to penetrate quite as well through there, and you just get a lot more mild or burning fires. Also, another thing you can do with that is just burn softer woods in the spring and fall. Something like poplar. Poplar is one of our favorite. And then in the colder months, try to use harder woods, ash, oak, or whatever your varieties are that are available in your local area. So these are just a couple simple little tips that I think can make a pretty big difference. If you're new to running a wood stove or just got a new stove, there's obviously a learning curve to it, and there's a lot that goes into it. And hopefully these can help you out and make your life a little bit easier. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.